Good evening. Today we should be dealing with ECG case number 9, which is Wellen syndrome. This is a very important syndrome which you have to know because this is frequently missed. The ECG is reported to be normal. The patient is sent home only to come back with an extensive MI. So let's start with the question. If an ECG is taken during an episode of chest pain and it turns out to be normal, then can you say that the chest pain is non-cardiac? So patient is coming with chest pain and you have recorded the ECG turns out to be perfectly normal. So can you code that this chest pain is non-cardiac? The same thing can also be repeated. If an echo taken during an episode of chest pain is normal, can you code the chest pain to be non-cardiac? So you can, there are two choices, true or false. You can have a look at the ECG below and then decide. The answer for this question will be revealed at the end of the video. So the 64-year-old female with new retrosternal burning chest discomfort at 2 a.m. It lasted for 30 minutes and improved with proton pump inhibitors. There was no conduction, no radiation, and no sweating. You have done a TROP, which is negative. In fact, the TROP was even repeated and it turned out to be negative. So you can have a look at the ECG and then have a look at the options on the side. If you require more time, you can pause the video or you can go ahead. So do you code this pain as cardiac, non-cardiac, or atypical pain? Do you admit this patient, observe this patient, or discharge after PPI? So do you code this pain as cardiac or non-cardiac or atypical? The correct answer is you consider this to be a cardiac pain. There are several features which are indicative of cardiac. One is an elderly female with a new retrosternal burning discomfort at 2 a.m. Now, nocturnal pain is very important. If you get a pain which occurs at night, especially if it's new onset, and the patient comes to you in the casualty, you consider that patient to have a cardiac pain unless otherwise proven. So a new onset of pain coming at night, you consider the pain as cardiac. If a patient comes to you at night with chest pain, you consider the pain to be cardiac unless otherwise proven. You can avoid several litigations. Several patients have been discharged saying that they have acid peptic disease only to come back with an MI. So never discharge a patient with chest pain at night. So the correct answer is you consider this as a cardiac pain and you can admit or observe depending on your facility. So if you have a very busy hospital, you can maybe observe, take serial ECGs and probably send a cardiology consultation and then plan to discharge, or you can straight away admit, but do not discharge the patient. So this is a repeated ECG after 2 hours. Now she is chest pain free. You can have a look at this ECG. The ECG shows a biphasic T wave, a very shallow T inversion in V1, a biphasic T wave in V2 and V3 with the symmetrical T inversions in V4, V5. Compare this to the previous ECG, which was normal. Now this pain, these are dynamic ECG changes. Now this pain should be considered to be cardiac. Why do we misdiagnose ACS as GERD reflux? Now this was a patient who had retrosternal burning discomfort with no conduction or radiation or no sweating. And this was relieved with antacids. This is the type of pain we frequently diagnose as acid peptic disease. But why do we misdiagnose ACS as GERD or reflux? GERD and reflux is the closest differential diagnosis you have to an MI pain, but frequently we misdiagnose it. Why? Up to 50% of MI patients have symptoms of APD. So patients of MI frequently have symptoms of burning discomfort. Diseases don't read textbooks and come and present to you. That's a very important thing you need to know. We learn MI pain or anginal pain to be a heaviness. Something is sitting on the chest with conduction to your left arm, to conduction to your neck with profuse sweating. Often people don't present like that. That's why a very important statement is medicine is diseases don't read textbooks. You need to be able to diagnose atypical symptoms. 20% of patients describe their angina pain as burning and indigestion. 15% of ACS patients get improvement with antacids. So remember, a patient can have angina and it can also get improved with antacids. It's a very important point. So relief with PPI does not mean the patient does not have an ACS. 8% report that their symptoms started after a meal. This is a very large study in which doctors asked patients, what were you doing when your angina or MI pain started? Some people reported that they were having emotional stress, or they were exercising, or they were doing some activity. 8% reported that their symptoms started after a meal. And finally, GERD and ACS often frequently coexist. So both of these ECGs are kept one below the other. What is this phenomenon called? This is called Wellens phenomenon or Wellens waves. So you can see that we shall discuss a bit later. You have a normal looking ECG and which is present during the time of chest pain. This is a very important point. During the time of chest pain, you will get a normal ECG, and when the patient is chest pain free, you get biphasic or symmetrical T inversions in the anterior leads. This phenomenon is called pseudonormalization. That is, the patient is not normal. He's actually having a very significant coronary artery disease, and the site of the lesion is the proximal LAD. That is a large area of myocardium at risk, but the ECG appears to be normal, so it is pseudo-normal. So what is this phenomenon called? This phenomenon is called pseudo-normalization. Where is the localization of the lesion? It is localized in the proximal LAD, a critical lesion in the proximal LAD. What is the syndrome? It's called Wellens syndrome. What is its importance? It implies that the patient has a significant lesion in the proximal LAD, a large area of myocardium at risk, and frequently, if you follow up these patients, around 75% develop an extensive anterior wall MI within a few weeks, in spite of medical management. That is very important. In spite of medical management, the patients develop an extensive anterior wall MI. So do not discharge this patient without a CAG. So you not immediately wheel the patient to the cath lab. You can admit the patient, you can give him all medical management, and then before discharge, do a coronary angiogram and do an angioplasty or bypass if required. Will you do a TMT? Absolutely not. You should never do a TMT for such patients because they invariably collapse on the treadmill. So if you see a Wellens syndrome or a Wellens pattern, do not do a TMT. Do not discharge this patient without doing a coronary angiogram. Wellens wave evolution. So you have two types of Wellens pattern. There is type A, which is a biphasic pattern, and type B, which is a symmetrically inverted pattern. So what happens actually in Wellens is the coronary artery, that's a proximal LAD occludes, and you have sort of an ST elevation, but since so early, the inverted T wave becomes upright, and the artery then spontaneously reperfuses. So, and it reperfuses and comes back to a biphasic T inversion. And if given enough time, it then goes in for a symmetrical T wave inversion. So initially you get a pseudo normalization, which is actually a sort of ST elevation, followed by a biphasic T wave, which may evolve to a symmetric T wave. This is actually the same pattern you get when you reperfuse an anterior wall MI. So ST elevation comes back and then goes into symmetric T inversions. So what is the criteria for Wellens syndrome? Now it's also called LAD coronary T wave syndrome. So you should require characteristic T wave changes. That is, you should require a pseudonormalization followed by when the patient is having chest pain, the patient should have a pseudonormalization, followed by when the patient is chest pain free, you should have biphasic or symmetrical T wave changes in the anterior leads. History of anginal pain. This is very important. If the patient is asymptomatic, do not diagnose Wellens syndrome. T inversions can happen in the anterior leads in many cases, even in non-cardiac as well as in cardiac conditions. So do not code Wellens syndrome in a completely asymptomatic patient. Patient should have normal or minimally elevated cardiac enzyme levels. So the patient should not have an MI, because if the patient has a trop T which is positive or a trop I which is positive, it becomes a non-ST elevation MI, and then anyway you have to do an angiogram. So the patient should not have a STEMI or an NSTEMI. ECG without Q waves, without significant ST elevation, and with normal precaudal progression. This just says that the patient should not have a ST elevation myocardial infarction. It should not evolve into a STEMI. So basically, characteristic T wave changes with the presence of symptoms, and enzyme negative, and ECG should not evolve to a STEMI. So as an angiogram was done, you can see a very significant, around 95 to 99% tight lesion in the proximal LAD in a large area of myocardium at rest. If this patient had gone in for an MI, it would have been extensive anterior wall MI, with the patient probably going into heart failure. So Wellens pattern or pseudonormalization localizes the lesion to the proximal LAD. 75% of patients develop an extensive anterior wall MI within a few weeks if they were treated only with medical management. This data is from the original paper of Wellen, which came in 1982. You follow up these patients, 3/4 of them develop an extensive anterior wall MI. Do not discharge without CAG. So this is not an indication to immediately wheel the patient into a cath lab, but you should do an angiogram before discharge. What is the pathophysiology? As described, it is a complete occlusion of the LAD causing a transient anterior wall MI. This causes elevation, ST elevation, and pseudonormalization of a previously inverted T waves. The LAD should reperfuse for Wellens pattern to happen, and subsequently it becomes biphasic. If the artery continues to remain open, it becomes symmetrical. So you have a type A evolving into a type B Wellens pattern. Now the artery may occlude again because it's a very critical lesion. And again, you may have intermittent reopening and occlusion of the artery. The occlusion of the artery again causes a pseudonormalization, and the reopening again causes a Wellens pattern. Ultimately, it occludes and the patient and the artery does not again reopen, and the patient develops into an anterior STEMI. This is the original paper, characteristic electrocardiographic pattern indicating a critical stenosis in high in the left anterior descending artery in patients admitted because of impending myocardial infarction. So these were actually a group of unstable angina patients who were categorized to be a high risk because of this unique ECG pattern. This came in the American Heart Journal in 1982. So let's take an example of this. You have a 64-year-old male with history of anginal pain, 25 minutes duration, 66 hours ago, now pain-free. The strop is 1,250. Now, whenever you have a pain of more than 20 minutes, it's no more stable angina. This patient has evolved into an MI. It's either unstable angina or NSTEMI, depending upon your markers. So what do you do for this patient? Repeat TROP-T, do a TMT, Wellens syndrome, you post him for an angiogram, or you diagnose this as an NSTEMI and post him for an angiogram. One is there is no indication for doing a TMT because now you know it's a typical cardiac pain, his enzymes are positive. So there is no need to categorize this disease further. It is anyway, you have to do an angiogram. This is not Wellens syndrome because look at the TROP-T. TROP is markedly elevated. This becomes a non-ST elevation myocardial infarction because you have not seen the ST elevation. This is actually an NSTEMI and you post him for an angiogram. So the correct answer is you diagnose this as a non-ST elevation myocardial infarction and post him for an angiogram. There might have been an ST elevation, we are not sure. Probably if you had taken the ECG when the patient was having angina, you could have probably seen an ST elevation. But since we have not seen an ST elevation, we have to diagnose this as a non-ST elevation MI. So this is not Wellens syndrome because biomarkers are positive. 34-year-old asymptomatic female who is a marathon runner referred for ECG changes for a routine pre-op evaluation. What do? Do you do a TROP-T, TMT, you diagnose as a Wellens syndrome, or you leave the patient alone? Now remember, you can see biphasic T inversions in V1 to V3 as well as a symmetric T inversion in V4. Now these are what you call as non-specific ST T wave changes. Look at this patient. She's one, asymptomatic, and two, she's a marathon runner. A patient with a proximal LAD tight lesion can never have a significant functional class. Forget about marathon running. She cannot even walk 100 meters without having dyspnea or chest pain. So such a good functional capacity this female has, it's unlikely that she has any coronary artery disease at all. So there is no indication for a TROP-T, there's no indication for a TMT. Marathon is 42 kilometers. If a patient can run 42 kilometers, he's unlikely to have any significant cardiac or even respiratory disease. This is not Wellens syndrome. Wellens syndrome does not occur in asymptomatic patients. The correct answer is leave the patient alone. Do not treat this patient as CAD. The important thing is do not treat the ECG, treat the patient. So T-wave inversions do not necessarily indicate CAD. The patient can have multiple diseases. The patient can have multiple diseases which have a T-wave inversion, like pulmonary embolism. Patient can have hypertensive heart disease, like patient of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or T-wave inversions can even be seen in certain normal individuals, like persistent juvenile pattern in young females. That does not indicate CAD. All T-wave inversions do not indicate CAD. Lastly, T-wave inversions do not localize. Ischemia does not localize on ECG. T-wave inversions and ST depressions do not localize. Pseudonormalization of T-wave, however, does, because pseudonormalization actually an ST elevation. So that localizes. So the last question is, if you have an ECG taken during the episode of chest pain and it turns out to be normal, then is the chest pain non-cardiac? You cannot rule that out. So the answer is false. Look at this ECG. The ECG is perfectly normal, but this patient may have a significant LAD disease. So ECG or echo during the episode of chest pain being normal does not rule out a cardiac disease. Angina is diagnosed by history. More than 200 years or 250 years, angina is diagnosed by history. It will continue to be diagnosed by history for the next 250 years also. Angina was first described by William Hebert in 1768. This is Levine's sign, the patient clutching his chest, a very typical sign for cardiac discomfort. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and press the bell icon to get notified when a new video uploads. Thank you.